Hello, and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 37, Powers of Creativity. I'm Bennett, and in this episode, Daniel and I talk about a handful of things. We start off talking about small talk. Maybe it's appropriate that the small talk at the beginning of our podcast is about small talk, but we talk about that for a few minutes, and then we launch into the promised Superpowers and Drawbacks that I mentioned in the last episode, this time at a level 8 power level, the highest we've ever done. It was pretty fun. And then we round off the podcast with a talk about creativity. Pretty interesting topic. And this time we kind of went down a rabbit hole after we asked the question, can things other than humans be creative? So I will leave you to ponder that for the 1 second until the episode begins. This
is
the
podcast in which
we
are
the
third
space
people.
Yeah, okay, well,
I dropped the ball on
all right.
that.
I feel like you dropped the bomb on that. You intentionally messed us up on that one. You were just being a chaotic element in our introduction, which I appreciate.
This is the podcast in which we are in third space. That's just the natural flow, if you ask me. So that's what I was going for. And I assumed you would, think in a similar fashion.
Right, great minds.
Think in a similar... Okay. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Do you think that's a good conversation opener? Like, how are you? I mean, it can be a good conversation opener if people take it seriously.
It's fine. I was actually thinking about this. I wasn't intending this to be a podcast opener, but I was thinking about small talk.
Yeah.
The other day, and because in the past, I've had a kind of viscerally negative reaction to small talk, and I think it might have been born out of maybe immaturity or something like that, but I always just considered myself the kind of person who hated small talk and would rather just get right into something important.
Yeah, why this shallow, polite crap,
right.
I hear that all the time from,
Right.
Well, my younger self and teenagers that do crave something substantive.
Exactly. Right, and I was thinking about it, and I don't know, I was just reconsidering that attitude, and I think, maybe small talk isn't that bad. Maybe it actually has a purpose, and I think it does, right? Like it really is a conversational
social glue
lubricant,
for sure.
Right? Like even though you're not explicitly communicating anything important like your dreams and aspirations and your history and childhood trauma, you're not doing any of that, but you are communicating important things like your tone of voice, your body language.
Like I'm a friendly person.
Face.
Are you?
You're learning.
I mean, that's kind of what small talk does.
Yeah, right. And you're learning about how the other person listens, how they respond, are they paying attention to you? You're doing the same thing, of course, and you're both sizing each other up. And even if it's a person you're relatively familiar with, people's moods fluctuate and they may have distractions or whatever. And so that small talk is a time to really narrow down the focus onto the conversation. And I think it eases you into and presents up opportunities to get into the more substantive stuff. And so, I'm not as down on small talk.
Actually, now that you say that, you can argue that while you're gauging all these complex things that you're talking about, it's better that the conversation be almost a pattern or a dance you've done a million times before with slight changes because it's a different partner and a different day and a different mood and all of that. Because it's all the things you'd said are difficult to gauge objectively. It's kind of a subjective experience. And so better the conversation be about weather or busy at work or whatever. I guess I would call it lighter topics. So you can be concentrating on subtext, I guess, or all the other elements that you're talking about. And then also, if a conversation is a pathway, it's difficult. I mean, imagine you're just standing at the bus stop with a stranger, and you kind of say, "Oh, you're clearly of a lower socioeconomic status. How's the plight of the oppressed?" And that's a substantive opener, right? But
That sure is.
But like, that's not fair to someone. Like, I think it's fair to talk to strangers, if you read the room right and see if they're not busy or whatever. It's fair to open up a conversation and test the waters. And clearly that's why you can say, oh, it's hot, isn't it? And if they're just like, yeah, and they reject the conversation politely, then nothing's lost. But it's not fair to say something like, hey, been through a divorce lately? Or, it's just not fair. And in fact, if you think about the rare times people do violate that, it's the kind of almost the drunk at the bar who like is talking about their ex-wife, and you're like, oh God, or someone who just doesn't read the room well, and they are considered socially, inadequate, and people don't like that at all. So, yeah, I'm for small talk. I'm pro small talk now.
Yeah, I'm still conflicted. Like, I recognize the utility of small talk, but there's still something attractive to me about going balls to the wall. What's your socioeconomic status? Like you mentioned, like maybe it's just that's so novel and unusual that if it were to happen to me, if I was standing, at a restaurant in line to order food or whatever, and someone started a conversation like that with me, that I would just be very pleased, because it's so unusual. It makes for a good story, and I can use it as a podcast opener.
But wouldn't it usually be about our trials and tribulations? And I don't know that we all want to go around sharing our trials and tribulations. Like, there's a privacy issue too, if the expectation culturally were to kind of wear that on your sleeve. I just don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, there's certainly a difference between depth of a conversational topic and the privacy
True.
of a conversational topic. Like, I don't expect the person to start talking about how traumatic miscarriages can be or something, but they might talk about like the importance of independence, when
something more abstracted,
just in general,
and philosophical, but still interesting.
Something abstract. Yeah,
I just wonder how many people are philosophical in that traditional sense. I don't know.
or maybe it could be even like, if you're in a restaurant with odd decor or something, they may comment on that and be like, I wonder if this decor comes from the Danish tradition of
to what degree do
anything,
aesthetics actually influence us? Is your meal enhanced by that giant cow?
Perfect.
That gold.
Excellent question.
I don't know.
Right. How much did the Chick-fil-A cow, walking around outside, influence your decision to come into Chick-fil-A today? Like, that's not a
or it's not a personal,
question.
You don't have to be vulnerable or something.
It's not even
that. Right.
Right. It's not even that deep, but it's very unusual, right? It's not how's the weather. It's not, oh, I'm hungry, or whatever little. It's not small talk. I guess it's like medium talk. Or
Medium
something.
talk. Okay, maybe there's a you don't have to get deep and you don't have to be shallow. There is a medium talk. Pardon me, would you like to engage in medium talk?
Yeah. There we go. That would be fun.
You promised at the end of last podcast for a level 8 superpowers and drawbacks, and I've been on the tip of my tongue, the chair of my seat since then. So I am so ready for this
deep
level 8, the most intense. Well, I don't know if intense is the right word, but the most severe drawback and superpower. Can we just get into it? Like, I'm so ready.
That we've had to date. Yeah, man. Absolutely, we can. I teased it last time. These are level 8s. It's the highest I have on the list, and I only have 2 level 8 superpowers and 2 level 8 drawbacks on the list, so I don't even have to.
I wonder if this will mean the decision's easier for me, or my knee jerk might be easier, but I really want to think these through, so let's go for it.
All right, so I'll do the first. First, I'll do the superpowers. So the first one, and I guess just a reminder. The way this works is I present you with 2 superpowers and 2 drawbacks, and you have to choose one of each. And there's no getting away with it with only a superpower. You have to, if you want a superpower, you have to take a drawback. And then of course you could just say, "Nah, I'm walking away. This is too much for me. I'm too weak and
Cowardly.
to take the gamble. Just being provocative. All right. Anyway, the first superpower is called Teleporta-Potty. Whenever you take a dump in a porta potty, you can teleport to any other porta potty that you've pooped in before. If an existing porta potty is moved, or you purchase and place a porta potty of your own, it'll reset all of your saved, quote unquote, saved teleport locations. So you can't like build this giant network. I guess you can, but you'd have to do it with forethought. So this is
if the porta potty is moved, which let's be honest, porta potties do move. It resets.
Yes.
It's not like I'd teleport to that particular, like if it's on the back of a truck or in a new location at a different location. I don't go there. I've lost it, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that one just gets removed from your network. Yeah. But if you start placing them all around,
and I have to be taking a dump. It's not like I just enter the teleport a potty.
Yeah. So you have to poop in it once in order to activate it. After that, you can just enter it and teleport.
Okay, so to activate it or to. I've taken a dump in this porta potty at wherever it is, and then now I can just teleport it until it moves, until it gets relocated. Okay.
Yes, I mean, you have to enter a porta potty in order to teleport to another porta potty.
But I don't have to dump to do that. Okay.
No.
Okay, I understand.
Right. So you could for example, your first action might be
fiber.
Buy.
I mean,
a porta potty.
Yeah, I might buy a porta potty.
Sorry, I was like, well, I was thinking the internet, and I was like, no, this doesn't go through the internet like fiber. This is magical.
No, I need to take a lot of dumps, right?
Right. Got it. Yeah. So, all right. We'll discuss it after. So, the second superpower that you can choose from is called Rebirth Day. So for this one, you get to relive your birthday immediately after it happens. So the way this works is on the night of your birthday, if you fall asleep before midnight, then when you wake up in the morning, it will be your birthday all over again. And it's as if you went back in time to the previous day. So anything that happened on your first run through the birthday will have been reset, but you are not. So you still have your memories from the first birthday, any injuries you might have gotten, anything like that. So anything to do with you.
Also by choice, like I could take an incredible risk and it worked out, and so I decide not to repeat, or I will forever on my birthday have a 2 days there. Basically, it will repeat.
It will repeat. Yeah, there's no choice. You can't. Well, you could just stay awake, all night. You can stay awake until past midnight on your first birthday, and then it just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't get the benefit of a rebirth day.
Well, the odds of me being awake at midnight they seem pretty high. I don't know, or could be.
Well, then if you want an extra birthday, then go to sleep before midnight the first time.
It could be an intense thing. It's like 10:30, and I'm like, oh crap! I better fall asleep. I need this to reset. And yeah,
I know intense. It could be. Right. Oh man, what did I do this birthday? I better fall asleep. Yeah, so that fits in with it. Like you can imagine some of the situations that might crop up to make it very stressful. So those are pretty powerful superpowers.
Yes.
Which is why they're level 8. But they're also not like you can fly.
They're interesting. And also I think the names are maybe the best part.
Yeah, I like the names. All right, so now the drawbacks. So in order to get one of those two superpowers, you have to pick one of these. The first one is called intermittent purgatory.
That sounds bad.
So with this one, every 5 years, you must serve a 1-year term in a purgatorial void. The void is a colorless room. We'll just say it's white. It's a white room with one infinitely long wall and an infinitely high ceiling.
An infinitely long wall you cut out there.
I'm just describing what it's. Infinitely long wall and an infinitely high ceiling. So it's just kind of like one wall. Imagine a white room, but with only one wall that goes on forever. and you can run forever away from the wall, directly perpendicular to the wall. You can run away from it forever, but you can only ever be a mile away from the wall. So if you ran completely away from the wall and then turned around, for days, and then turned around.
Wait, what's on the wall? I don't know if it cut out or what. There is a wall there, but
nothing.
So
nothing. It's just blank. It's totally.
So why is there a wall at all? I'm not trying to be funny. I just
just because it is. That's the way
and
purgatory is.
I'm not eating, void. And I'm not. There's no entertainment.
No.
There's no.
So, right.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not done. So let me finish. So yeah, while you're in the purgatorial void, you don't age, grow, or wither. You don't need food, water, or any other earthly necessity. And then, in addition to that, there are 3 items present with you in the void, and they can't be removed. A black Sharpie marker with infinite ink, a tennis ball, and a telephone book from the greater Chicago metropolitan area circa 1984. And just a last tidbit, any damage or modification to these 3 items, it'll be repaired on subsequent trips to the purgatory. So there's a lot in this one. I tried to paint a picture of what
you were letting me draw for entertainment or write for entertainment. The ball can serve a lot of like athletic or just something to stimulate the brain, and I suppose reading or paper. Just you have a year to figure out some creative things with these items. But also, wow, a year. Exactly. Okay, I'll think about that in a minute. So yeah, I got it.
Yep. All right, and then the last one, the second drawback is called Doom Dreamer. It sounds like a B-movie title. And for this one, each night you dream of the future deaths of all of the people you met during the preceding day. All the dreams are truly predictive, and you have lucidity while dreaming, though you can't influence the outcome of the dreams. And if you try to warn the people about what happened in your dreams, they won't believe you. And if you try to intervene, then fate will prevent you from altering the outcome.
And you said people I meet.
Yeah, anyone you meet throughout
including loved ones and friends and all. Meeting being just like interact with. So I would know the fate of my loved ones and friends and anyone
You would.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I'm having repeat dreams because I'm seeing them every day. And it's. Did you say it's every night I'm dreaming this?
Yes, every night.
Oh, man. That's awful. Well, both of your drawbacks are psychologically taxing, but one is, purgatory or intermittent purgatory.
They're very differently psychologically.
Yes, and one you get a real respite from the psychological torture, but during the torture, it's a year is no joke to consider. It's not costing me anything off of my life, and I might learn some meditative habits that really help me break through, but it's hard to even guess what being in a situation like that for a year would do. It's difficult to predict, and so that difficulty makes it unappealing. Because to me, in my decision making, I tend to want to fully understand the decision or realistically understand the situation before I go into it. And the temptation with intermediate purgatory is like, I can handle a year. But I don't know that. And I suspect that a year could feel like an eternity with I've never gone weeks in my life of not talking to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of isolation alone. And even if you said, it has Netflix or something like that in purgatory, that might help to be able to see people and form some sort of one-sided relationship with them. But even then, it would be a very sad and lonely time. So just having a tennis ball to keep me company, it'd be like a Wilson scenario, where I have friends with the tennis ball. But I want to go back to Teleporta potty and rebirth day. Rebirth day sounds fascinating. Let me throw a scenario at you. Like if I went to Vegas, put it all on red, and won. Uh, the next day, if I did, that means if I went to Vegas, put it all on red, I would win again. Yes.
If it well, so maybe you would have to do all of your actions, because of the spider effect. You'd have to do all of your actions exactly the same way. But if you could time it, if maybe instead of it being Vegas, if it was a horse
Okay,
race,
horse race
then
because
yes, you could do
that like I had little that makes sense. I was just wondering about that, right? Like, because one of the temptations would be the betting or whatever advantages I could gain monetarily. Yeah,
the lottery,
stuff like that.
whatever. If the lottery happens on your birthday, yeah, that you can. Games of chance would be hard, but a race or a sporting event, maybe the Super Bowl.
Yeah, which would not happen on my birthday, but
do that.
yeah, I.
Well,
I mean, no. It will never fall on December 1st. It just won't. The teleporta potty, I could theoretically buy and try to hide some porta potties like in weird, like in the woods nearby a town that's desirable to go to, and so long as it doesn't get discovered or moved, because if they cleared the land, go buy a porta potty, I'm sure, but.
Mm-hmm. There are also probably locations where porta potties are maybe not permanent, but more, they're definitely there for a longer amount of time, like concert venues and things like that. Sometimes at concert venues you see those big old rows of porta potties, and they're just there.
Because they're often at you're right. They stay there because it's a venue that is built for concerts and or like state fairs and stuff, and so they're semi-permanent. And there's like food truck like outings that are basically not food trucks. There's just a bunch of them that are permanent little places, and they have. And teleportation, that idea could be monumental.
Yeah, I mean, even having even if you bought your first porta potty and put it at your house where you live, then that means that now you only ever have to do one way travel. Like as long as you can find a porta potty somewhere, then you can always get back home instantaneously.
Right. That is truly appealing. Okay. I tend to, when it comes to time travel or altering future type stuff, which I think Rebirth Day has more of that. Whether it's reading too much literature, I mean, the lesson from every time travel thing is don't screw with the future, or don't try to screw with destiny, and that has been baked into me. So as tempting as it is, if I were to choose one of these, teleporta potty doesn't feel like I'm tempting God or fate or the idea of destiny. Teleporta potty just sounds like I could be more efficient, enjoy some things, and have a richer life without trying. Because Rebirth Day kind of gets dark in that, like, I'll just try and I'll engage in risky behavior and see if it works out, and if it does, I'll just do it the next day. But again, that's like, I'm not sure. That really throws like as a moral person trying to live their life, now you're given this sort of do-over, and so it's tempting to just sort of go against your morals and see if it works out. And I don't know, like everything I read, it just kind of puts me off on that. So I'm thinking teleporta potty if I'm choosing one of those, and then let me intermittent purgatory or doom dreamer. Ideally, if Doom Dreamer is just a dream, it's not just a dream, I guess. That's the torturous part. And not only knowing your loved ones and friends' fate, but like being forced to. It wouldn't just be like, now I know. It's I have to experience it nightly in probably a series of, lots of dreams per night. I mean, some days I'm only interacting with I mean, as a teacher, I'm actually interacting with dozens of people. So I'm having fast dreams of people's death. And like, I'd either have to just learn to ignore it. And if I could, then it's actually not that big of a deal. But I cannot imagine knowing that this is truth. It's not just grotesque dreams. It's truth. It's future prediction. So that would be hard to ignore. If it were grotesque dreams, I could convince myself I'm strong enough to just discount these are horrible dreams. That's it. But given that they are predictive in nature, I don't know that I could shake that.
So one thing about it that I thought was interesting when I was considering this one is that because I considered grotesque dreams, but what's more grotesque? Something grotesque or the truth? That's a question you start up while you're waiting for food with a stranger. Yeah. But also keep in mind that many people, maybe even most people, their deaths aren't grotesque, right? I mean, a lot of people
Old
die
bedside,
of old age or heart attack or whatever. And so, is it sad? Yeah, it's sad. But it's not like your dreams are going to be nonstop slasher movie poisons.
Right? Maybe 8 out of 10 are just sort of they died and at 75 of cancer or something, I mean,
right.
That is a good point that they're not, and there might even be, could you learn to take comfort in that, saying, oh, they're going to have a nice long life, and
I think you could,
and then
it's possible. I mean, there's no doubt that there's this is going to be heavy stuff that you have to deal with. You have to deal with this information in some way, whether you cope or delude yourself or whatever. You're going to have to deal with this information. The question is, can you handle
what if you start to live your life by, I'm only going to surround myself with those who die of natural old age causes because, turns out this person close in my life is murdered and I cannot handle those dreams every night, so I have to distance myself from them. And then they call me and no, leave me alone.
Yeah, weird. I mean, there probably would be some strange psychological effects that happen because of that.
Yeah. And then intermittent purgatory, the difficult to gauge. I'm sure I could come up with some amusing means of entertaining myself.
Right. Yeah, so once every 5 years you have to do this.
Yeah. And it's not aging me.
Yeah, so it's really only the mental aspect, right? The mental and psychological aspect. If you can tolerate that, then physically you're not losing anything, and time is paused while you're there, so it's not like you're missing out on experiences with your friends and family and everything. It's just, can you tolerate
I think
time?
that is, even though it's riskier, I can, in terms of a year. I keep coming back to a year. Because if you had said 1 day a week I had to do this, then it's frequent. And that might...
It's more frequent. No, it's not. It's not.
But it's close. But that's spread out. 1 day a week.
Close.
So one out of every 8 days I'm or 7,
1 out of every 7 days. And this is 1 year out of every 6.
But a year at a time versus 24 hours. I think I'm gonna choose intermittent purgatory if I had to put. So it'd be the reason being is Doom Dreamer. I'm with a relative degree of certainty it is too much for me. Even though, like you said, and you made me think. You made me pause there and go, yeah, actually, most will probably be this. But it would change relationships with people if they. It would just hurt a lot and almost inevitably cause a lot of damage. At least intermittent purgatory. Usually I don't go for the unknown, but when I'm so certain the known is awful, I mean, this flies in the face of that what's that? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. But in this case, the devil I know with Doom Dreamer is so bad, I'll take my chances. Because even if intermittent purgatory is severe and I kind of crack a little bit, I'd like to hope I can pick the pieces back up, when I return.
Imagine how strange it would be. Like I don't know when this triggers, but let's just imagine, you go to sleep on Tuesday, and then the intermittent purgatory triggers, and you're whisked off to the
For a
void,
year. Yeah.
and for a year, and then you come back on Wednesday morning, after you have experientially spent a year in the void, and you're going into your classroom, and your kids are like talking about their homework assignment from yesterday, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, remind me of everything that
you're hugging all your loved
on.
ones and your friends, and you're like, so good to see you, and all of this. Would I be able to tell them and they would believe me, so they could maybe even prep, and like they just go to bed on Tuesday, wake up Wednesday, and they like throw me a party and go, hey, and they like can be gentle with me? Am I allowed to do that?
Sure, there's nothing in this drawback that suggests that you couldn't do that. That they would just have to believe you if you can convince them.
Yeah.
I would believe you.
Okay.
Oh, but you could maybe you might be able to prove, well, maybe not prove, but highly suggest that you're telling the truth. Like, you have a year in which you get to spend the time. So you could on Tuesday night say, okay, how about this? I'm gonna write and memorize a story while I sleep tonight. And I would be like, no way, that's impossible. Or you wouldn't say a story, you would say a macro poem, I guess, right? It would be it's like a huge epic poem, and I would be like, you can't do that. And then Wednesday morning, after having spent a year devising this macro poem and writing it on the wall with your Sharpie, and memorizing it, you would come back and recite it to me, and I would be forced to admit that something's going on here. It must be a drawback in Superpowers and Drawbacks.
That's even
intermittent purgatory.
That's even a strong case for, like, memorizing keeps you sane. It gives you something to occupy your brain intellectually, and I would like write out a really long poem and then just take to memorizing it. And I guess I wouldn't bother doing too many I mean, I could work out, but like there's no need to up my physical, like it wouldn't matter really. But
yeah, it wouldn't matter. I mean, yeah, it would. There are benefits to physical exercise in the moment. That exhaustion or whatever. But yeah, you can't get buffed while you're in the void and then come back and like suddenly have a workout.
I think this would even change me potentially for the better. It's kind of what doesn't kill me makes whatever. When I go through bad things, I can come out stronger. That's it.
Yeah, right. That's what they say.
And so, but I do
after a lot of thought,
I do believe that if you learn to peacefully handle this year, that that those gains, that mental fortitude's a good word, would serve me immeasurably in my regular life.
So, all right, that's true, and I agree with that. But can't you also say the same about Doom Dreamer? Like, if you could learn to accept mortality, and
yes,
because truly, like, this is what my choice between these two is extremely close. I haven't even worked it out until you put me on the spot. I don't know if I'll even choose between these, but like, the thing about Doom Dreamer to me is that it is the truth. What you see in your dreams, whether you dream it or not, it will happen. Like right now, without the drawback, everyone you know and love will die one day, and that's horrifying, right? Like, that's traumatic if you think about it too long, to know that all of your friends and family are gonna die. You're gonna die too.
Yes.
Like, that's terrifying, but it's the truth. And if you could learn to accept that. You dream it and you accept that, then you might you build up a certain kind of mental fortitude.
That's a compelling point, honestly.
You may learn to appreciate the people in your life more, or maybe you dream, someone dies young, and that you have that knowledge. They'll never believe you, and you can't intervene, but to make the most of your time with them while you can.
Gosh, that's actually a really compelling point. That if my perspective shifts, in which we all intellectually acknowledge that we're all gonna die, but I don't emotionally. I think we bury it deeply. Like this is something that we just
Right.
do. I mean, because we want to go on and live our lives and have joy, and so
Well, and that's also why, when a family member dies suddenly, or even not suddenly, it's so emotionally, it's a huge emotional toil, right?
yes,
Because we don't think about death, we don't think about mortality, we bury it, and then when it happens, it slaps us in the face. All of that turmoil, hits you at once, and
it demands to be resolved.
it's
We can bury it, and
right,
it's nothing's demanding to be resolved. So Doom Dreamer, this would demand that you resolve it before it happens. In a way, it's just so
right,
in theory, it could break me open. A lot could come out in terms of me having to wrestle with the idea of death and mortality and all of that. But I could come out with like almost a peaceful perspective and say, yes, this is just a reality, and I just happen to know some things, and I would, it might insist that I have perspective and alleviate some small time stress that, like, for instance, right now I'm experiencing a sense of overwhelm at work with whatever X, Y, and Z. I could list them and complain about it, but if I just have a hard time believing that I would be as stressed about my work situation if I was deeply aware of my and everyone else's mortality. I just would have a perspective that was a bit bigger picture. And so,
right. Well, imagine too, that annoying kid in your class who continues to misbehave and treats you disrespectfully or
yeah,
whatever. Like when you see them die in your dream, it kind of makes their trivial misbehavior like you're just kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be too upset at them for that.
if so, the question is, do I think, and I think it's conceivable that I could kind of overcome what I currently like my newfound perspective could be an unforeseen gift that I'm like, okay, like if I am able to shift to that direction, then all of a sudden Doom Dreamer is just something I accept in my dreams, but I accept in reality. Well, now you've thrown that in there. I might choose Doom. Actually, I will choose Doom. This is one of the first times I
Oh,
think I would shift the two up. So
shift it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would stick
Yeah.
with. I still haven't decided whether I'd walk away or not, by the way. But teleport a
Right. Sure.
potty and
Teleport
Doom
body and
Dreamer.
Doom
Yep.
Dreamer.
And then I
So, what do you think? Is it worth it? Is teleport body worth Doom Dreamer?
um no.
No.
I
Okay.
just no. Like almost, I'm trying to think of a case for it, and it's a resounding no for me.
I mean, just you would be like this Buddha like monk having toppled your fear of
True.
death, pooping in a porta potty, able to just zap to wherever you want, Like, I mean, think about how super heroic
I
you would
would. I'd be
be.
this Zen character who's wise, profound, and efficient. um,
Right.
and I almost don't recognize myself in this scenario. No,
Well, such as level 8.
it's
That's how it goes.
scary at that level, and it's so unrecognizable. I don't know who I would be after facing and accepting death, even though. I mean, I'm almost in the position of saying that there is. I really do believe there'd be a gift if I accepted it. There's also a chance that I crack and like it's in a bad way and kind of don't come back. I can't accept it, and that it's just sends me into a spiraling depression or something like that. There's a chance, right? That it's just the
Sure.
weight is too much to bear. So, and I think almost certainly I'd have to go through that and then break and then reform stronger. I don't think it would just be like, oh, this kind of sucks, and then, enlightenment about death. I think I'd have to be
Yeah.
broken, and that's something that is not a trivial circumstance to go through. So, yeah, it would be teleporter potty and Doom Dreamer, and I'm walking away. But man, I mean,
Okay.
you gave a good shot. You tempted me for a bit, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but I gotta walk away. What about you?
All right. Yeah. Ah, man, This is a difficult one for me as well. I I mean, I'm on the same page with you for a lot of your reasoning. Teleportapody, teleportapody isn't as momentous as any of the others.
Agreed.
It's not as momentous as Rebirth Day or any of the drawbacks. It's a little lighter. It's still very powerful, but it doesn't have the implications that the others do. I think that, if I had this power, I could make it very powerful, right? By, positioning porta potties.
You would get very strategic, yes.
Yeah, and pooping in them all, and you could use that to your benefit. I'm trying to think what's the ceiling on that benefit. Like imagine, I have this teleporta potty.
I think you do have a network. I think you could hide two in an area as a backup, so when one gets eliminated, you go back and correct it. So you like.
I could build a lot. I could get like primer on things and build a huge porta potty and put a porta potty inside of it, and
You're.
porta potty. My porta potty.
I think you start learning to bury. Well, never mind. I was thinking, just bury them; they'll never get discarded. But like, so stupid.
And then you poop yourself into a coffin. You can't get out. That's funny. So, but the ceiling would be, I have a porta potty in, all the major cities around the world, and I can zap anywhere. And so this basically means vacation.
Visits with friends. Your friends would understand you have this power, and they certainly would be willing to put them in their yards and stuff too.
That's yeah, I didn't consider that, but that's more valuable than being able to just pop out on the beach
to go to Paris and whatever,
Thailand or whatever. Well, that's all really cool, and I certainly would, use it for vacationing, or I can go have a genuine dinner in, the place where the cuisine is best or whatever. That would be really, really awesome. But how awesome is it? Pretty awesome, but it also takes a lot of work. So, that's just kind of, it is what it is. Rebirth Day sounds on its face like a no-brainer, right? It sounds like the better one because it's magic in which you can truly affect the future. You can undo things. Time travel has always been one of my, it's a sci-fi thing that I really like. I like stories that have time travel, even if they're a little corny, and the possibilities.
Oh, I mean, monetarily, relationships, like taking some risks that you wouldn't otherwise. Oh, it's just so appealing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine the potential, right? Like you could, if there's someone you dislike, the classic, you can really just let your boss that you hate have it. I don't have that situation, but, or people you like, you can be truly vulnerable with them and see, if you have someone you have a crush on, you can finally, all the classic time travel.
Run around naked somewhere,
You can do whatever, I mean, there's the danger, as you mentioned, though, of a corruption of your morals. Like, what dark thoughts would enter your mind? Like I could murder someone and then undo it. I could get the gratification or the corruption, whatever it is. Like you could, the limits are taken off, and you learn, or are tempted to learn, who you really are, and that's pretty terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And so, you have to be bound by your own discipline. As you're no longer bound by reality. You have to be bound by your discipline, and well, you have to face whether you.
And if you are disciplined, then what's the point? Like, if you.
Right. Well, and when I ask myself that, I think that even if I had this power, I wouldn't be murdering and raping people. Like I'm not.
That's good to know.
I have no interest in that, but I would, taking risks, that. Like you're certainly going to do that, and so I would be tempted to, like steal a car and drive extremely fast. Like go on a joyride or high speed chase. Or
if you
whatever.
die, you said the injuries reset. Would death just give you that reset as well?
Oh,
you got to say yes, I think. Or are you gonna? Or it's.
I think you have to. Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, it really, really cuts down on your options.
Yeah.
So yeah. I guess I will say that. So, so again, like this is another one where your creativity really affects the power, how strong this power
But does
is.
my argument
Like,
about
what are the
all the
things you can get
narratives
up
we
to?
ever have kind of are cautionary tales against it? Does that affect you? Because it
Well,
does affect me.
nah, I mean, so it does and it doesn't. Like, the thing about that narrative is that time travel, as far as we know, does not really exist, and so no one has truly been able to learn the lessons
Yes,
of
they're
time travel.
speculating the
You know,
lessons. Yeah.
they're speculating the lessons. Now, I'm not that cynical about moral lessons in stories. I think that there's a lot of value there, but all that value generally is from real experience. People have had the experiences, they abstracted into the story. I think that, I think probably what all these narratives about time travel are saying is that, when you toss your moral code to the wind, then that's bad, and you'd certainly be tempted to do that with Rebirth
And if
Day.
and if you
That's bad.
didn't, then I mean, I guess there's still fun to be had without tossing your, or like risky behaviors that are not tossing your morals. Like if you know,
So just think about the lamest do nothing limit case. You get to experience your birthday twice, right? Like, even
yeah,
you get to be with your family and friends and have your birthday party twice and get the presents twice. And, even if you only mildly altered your actions to show a little bit more excitement when you open this present, or, oh, I forgot to give my aunt a hug, like, what, even small little things, that's still a nice to have. That's not a level 8, but, like, it's
it's
still
not
kind of
nothing.
nice.
Yeah,
It doesn't go terribly wrong off the rails at that level, and that's within your power. If after, one birthday, maybe you feel like this is dangerous for you, like you did something you regret on your on your first birthday that you undid, and you're worried about the darkness that might reside inside you. Well, all the rest of your birthdays you could just open your presents
yeah.
twice.
I like it. So then,
Now, I don't think so. I'm still. So teleport a potty. I'm trying to imagine in the limit. Like I say, I could have a world-spanning network of porta potties, and I could go wherever I want, and I could see my friends whenever. But I'm still limited by my friends being busy, and my own sleep cycle and all of that sort of stuff. So being able to go wherever. I mean, honestly, how much better than airplane travel are teleporter
oh, I think
potties?
a lot. I think that we would hang out on the weekends, or you would like it.
Yeah, but if I really wanted to hang out with you that much, I could just live near you. You know.
True.
I do. If I had teleporter potty, I certainly would. I would
Like
hang
you
out with
did
you
just
on
move, and you could have moved anywhere, and
weekends.
you did not move near me. So
I didn't.
no, it's true.
I mean, not that's the fact of the matter. That's reality dreamer. Like, that's the way it is. But I mean, to be generous to your feelings, like, I strongly considered moving near you, but I just don't like where you live.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm
I
not
couldn't
offended at
convince
all. It's just a
myself to.
funny statement of like, yeah, but if I really wanted to hang out a lot, I just live near you. It's not that.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Like
I'm
that
just
reality
trying
is
to
so
say
conceit. Yeah, like it could have happened, and
how
literally
super.
you had the golden opportunity recently, and yeah, it didn't. So
Yeah. I mean, how super is the superpower? I don't know. I think Rebirth Day is just more of a superpower. So I think I'm gonna go with Rebirth Day, and I'm gonna trust that I have the moral fortitude to endure and the creativity to make Rebirth Day worth it. So that's what I'm going with between the two.
okay.
Now, for the drawbacks, Intermittent Purgatory or Doom Dreamer. So I can tolerate solitude, I think, better than you can. Do you
I
think
think
that's
that's
fair to say?
very fair.
I mean, I live a fairly solitary life already. Like, I talk to the people I order lunch from, and I don't eat lunch out every day. I talk to my coworkers every day, at work, I guess, virtually. Um, so I'm not, like, depressed, or my mental status isn't, like, in danger because of that. I'm actually pretty happy with that situation. A year is a long time to spend totally alone, even for me. But I have the Greater Chicago Metropolitan Area phone book, so circa 1984. So
You can write stories about the people in them. You can.
Well, so I was trying to think what would I do for a year in there, and I have the Sharpie marker with infinite ink, so you could write. You could write on the wall or on the floor or whatever, and you can put a lot of time into writing. So
yes.
I could reflect on the previous 5 years and write about that on the wall. I could write stories. I could recall from memory all kinds of things and write them down, and that would certainly help with the boredom. I would almost have to engage in some sort of meditation, something, like that's just a long time to spend in silence. The tennis ball, that's kind of a lighthearted little entertainment. I could play wall ball with myself.
Yeah.
I could throw it really high, bounce.
It's also physical. It's very physical, so that's something important.
I think it's a physical thing. And then the phone book, it's funny, but
can I guess material. How you? Yeah, that's you wanted to say a book, and then you thought about different narratives, but you thought that's too entertaining or something, so you went with phone book, and then you just sort of select.
I just wanted something that would make you have to think how to be entertained, right? Like if you get a novel, then the obvious thing to do is just read the novel, and then it's going to get old after reading it once, like the diminishing returns. It's strange to say, but I feel like the diminishing returns on the Greater Chicago Metropolitan Area 1984 phone book is smaller than on a novel, a regular old story novel. Like you have to make yourself find value in the phone book, and I think you can. I think you would. It would take time to find that value, and well, that's what you're trying to do is spend time in the purgatorial void. And then if you got tired of reading it, you could tear out the pages and make paper airplanes, or ball them up and build a pyramid out of the crumpled balls, or take the pages and put them flat on the ground and then run really fast and slide on them. Like I don't know. You got a year to figure out how to use the phone book.
And here's the interesting thing about that, by the way. If you were to give just a big old novel, I would think that's just obviously better because you can do all the same things. But if you start to tear the pages out, you can't reread it, or you have to consider each page is precious in its own right because it's part of a greater narrative, whereas the pages in a phone book are, I guess, less consequential.
That's a good point.
So,
and you can put them back in order if you need to.
It could be a game, too, putting them in whatever.
So that it's tolerable. I think I could manage. I don't think I would go crazy from intermittent purgatory, and it's every 5 years. I wonder what happens on your birthday.
What do you mean?
Whatever. Like the combination of I chose rebirthday and intermittent purgatory. So there's one.
But time's not passing, right? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not passing, so it doesn't matter. Doom Dreamer, we covered a lot. Could I tolerate it? I think I could. I mean, there's no doubt that it would be traumatic. It would be emotionally affecting to see the people that you interact with die. But I just can't get away from that thought that they're gonna die anyway, and so the only thing different is my knowledge, my comprehension of the fact, and I do have some information about it. So like if someone you care about dies in a robbery or something in your dream and you see it, I mean, your robbery is now more real to you, or a car accident. That is now more real to you. We kind of put that from our minds when we get in a car or when we walk down a dark back alley or whatever. We put it from our minds, and we don't think that we're going to get mugged or smashed into by a bus or anything. But if you see it every night, or even one night, if it's someone you care about, well, that is now more real to you. Again, it's not anything new. It's been real the whole time. It's just now you're more aware of it. So if I chose this, then I would have to make it to that Zen-like state that we talked about. And
you think you could make that?
I think I could make it, but the question is, which Zen do I want? Do I want the Purgatory Zen or the Doom Dreamer Zen? Like, which one can I tolerate more? And it's so hard to say. I find it very difficult to choose between these two. I feel like intermittent purgatory. What could I gain from these drawbacks? Intermittent purgatory, I could generate the things that I write. I could order my thoughts. Every 5 years, I have a long time to really
process.
put things in my put things in my brain in order, which is that could be beneficial. Doom Dreamer, what do I benefit from it? It would be that strength that you mentioned of acknowledging mortality, and then also, like, I do think there's some information to be gained if like there's someone who dies young, you can spend your time with them in a more valuable way, or spend more time with them.
I think the strength it runs deeper than that. By the way, just strength. It's a profound worldview shift. It's like you are accepting something that I think every other person on the planet, I mean, maybe there's someone else who has, but you're accepting and have a perspective that is like enlightening. Yeah, so it's not just a strength thing. It's like a holy moly, you are. I really do think that Zen state would be huge. I don't even know what I mean when I say Zen. It's just a hippie term, but like, I know it's a religious and spiritual term.
Yeah, you can't overstate that strength for sure. There's also maybe taking it back a step and not quite as deep. Like sleep. I love to sleep. I love sleeping. It's so nice. It feels good, and like it changes your state of mind, right? Like if you're worked up on one day and you go to sleep, when you wake up in the morning, you're refreshed and you're not as stressed or worked up. But now this drawback, it takes that away from me, right? Like sleep is no longer a peaceful void. I don't usually dream anyway. Now it's filled with really affecting negative things, and it takes away that refuge. That I don't like that.
Right.
So I think I lean towards intermittent purgatory. Like I think I think I'm suited for if I have to endure that. Like I think I could manage, and I might be able to squeeze some utility from it. And it would be annoying, but it's once every 5 years, meaning like I have rough, give or take, 50 years left, so 10 purgatories. Well, with recent advances in medical science.
Yeah.
I might be 11 purgatories. Yeah. Could be 12 purgatories even.
Could be 12. That's pretty wild to think about.
So, with 13 purgatories...
13 seems a
14?
little... Okay.
14 purgatories?
Now, how old would you be if you were to do the math on 14?
100... it'd be, every 5 years, so 70 years plus where I am. Now, that would put me at over 100 years old.
Ridiculous, but maybe.
15 purgatories.
No, so do you choose it? Well, you said intermittent purgatory is what you're choosing, and rebirth
16 purgatories.
Would you choose it? Or do you walk away?
I would take it.
Take your 16 purgatories.
Just imagine rebirthday. Even if I only have one rebirthday, if I wisely put my life savings on a horse race or the lottery or whatever, like I could radically alter my day to day and in fact the rest of my life simply monetarily. Not even getting into the creative uses of rebirthday. If that's the only thing I used it for, then I could radically alter the course of my life. And then intermittent purgatory, if I can tolerate that, which I think I can, then, well, I mean, that kind of tilts the scales a little bit, right? Like that.
I guess so. I just would think for you, things like monetarily, like as far as...
it's not that... I'm just... I don't care about money.
Maybe you get like a heated bidet, like a, I don't know.
Yeah, instead of having the ice cold water one, because it's affordable. Well, so there's a difference, right? Like, I don't live extravagantly, because I don't have any super strong desire for that. But really, it's a cost benefit thing. To live extravagantly takes extravagant effort, to earn the money and manage the money and blah blah blah. But rebirthday might, if used correctly, might allow me to sidestep the effort. It would be almost as if someone plopped down unlimited money.
Here's a funny thought. You could there's no rule against telling, like, say me that you have this rebirthday gift and that you invite me on these adventures, and I kind of have to trust, but I never remember. And you tell me about our crazy adventures that on that birthday, and I just am like having to trust. And you could kind of prove it by like saying this horse is gonna win. This is second, third, fourth, fifth, and it happens. And
Sure.
and I'm like, all right, let's do crazy adventures. And you're like, dude, you died yesterday. Oh, that sucked. So we're not doing that one again. You know.
Oh, I could do that. I could. Um,
That would just be a funny thing that you could just lie to me now and tell me it's happening, and that's why and tell me we went on a too crazy of an adventure yesterday. This time we're just gonna go out to eat and like have a normal day. Like it was too much for me.
yeah, that's how it would be. You would have one insane day, and then your second birthday, you're gonna be opening your present from your aunt, and it's gonna be kind of like, thanks. Thanks for the candle.
And then and that's all it would be from like, so from my perspective, you just tell me these wild stories that we went on. It'd just be so weird. I like it.
Yeah,
So you take
I'm
it.
gonna just I'm gonna take it. This is a podcast. I can just I'm just gonna live. I'm gonna live a little, man. And I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take rebirthday and intermittent purgatory. That's what I'm gonna go with. I think I could manage.
I'd like to see how many I've turned down. I feel like I've turned down most of them. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I haven't counted, or I didn't make a mark of that. But I think you probably have. It's probably fairly close. So this is the first time we've done one at such a high power level. How do you think it compares to the low power level ones? Is it more fun, less fun, same amount of fun?
As far as intellectually investigating it, I thought it was just as much fun. I just am scared that my answer is always going to be walking away. The more severe the consequences get, it means the less I can predict, and I'm risk averse. And so as long as that's not a boring takeaway, is that I'm likely to walk away. I don't even know if that's true, by the way. It's just my guess.
I think it's about the balance, right? And imagine you had a seesaw, and you had a pebble on one side and like a battery on the other side. If you remove the pebble, then the seesaw is just slowly gonna fall over to the battery. It's not weird. But imagine you had like a giant metal safe and a boulder, and you take one off, the seesaw is really quickly going to fall one direction or the other. And so it's kind of like that, right? Like at the level 1 superpowers and drawbacks, things just aren't as momentous. You might walk away, you might not walk away. It doesn't really matter that much. But at the high level ones, the balance is almost more important, right? Because
I think so.
But as long as the balance is correct, as long as I do a decent job balancing the numbers, then they should be interesting at every level. Because surely there's some combination of superpower and drawback, no matter how powerful, in which you would choose. You would choose it. You would take it.
And I'm with you. I think that the balance was good here. I mean, it's easy for me to step in as someone who didn't think of it and critique it and say, "Oh, well, I think that those strengths were not, or the superpower was not quite as strong as the drawback." But the fact that we were able to sit there and debate it for a while, I think speaks to it. So,
yeah,
and the fact that you would take it, by the way, also is an argument that's not true. Like my claim is not true.
Yeah, some of them are better balanced than others.
There's so many variables that we get into, and obviously you don't explore it for 30 minutes in your head when you have them, so it's hard to, the variables that come out can be surprising or go in different directions, which is the pleasure of the game. So
right, I could spend one purgatory like coming up with a ton of these.
Yeah
we have so much material.
I would like that.
So it's actually, I didn't intend for the superpowers and drawbacks to have any overlap, but it kind of segues into something I wanted to talk about. So let me just pose this question to you bluntly.
Okay.
What is creativity?
What is creativity? My knee jerk was to go into sort of a we engage in life, and then we come up with, or we face a problem of some sort, or some moment that we need to reorient, go a different direction, or find a solution to that. And so in those solutions, we have to invent something, because the path wasn't working. It was disrupted. The nature of a problem is that it is not, what we're currently doing is not working. So I have to reorient and come up with a different way of doing something. So out of that, I have to create a new pathway, or a new solution, or a new outside of my previous operations. And in that is creativity. I also want to, so that's one angle my brain went. The other angle was like, well, I think producing a narrative, or producing a piece of art, whether that's literature or painting or a sculpture or some product, like that's not solving a problem as much as it's having nothing, and well, I can't say nothing, but wanting to explore an idea, and then so taking and then manifesting something that explores an idea in a unique way. That's very vague to say, but manifesting something that explores an idea in a unique way, which maps onto the problem solving. You're still exploring an idea or a problem, and in a unique way, and having to manifest something around it. Is that fair?
No, that's fair. Excellent analysis of creativity.
I appreciate it.
So you kind of have two definitions. One is very practically oriented. How do we manipulate our environment, or even our ideas, in order to solve problems? It's goal oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And one which is a little, you can make some arguments that it's goal oriented, but it's a little bit more abstract. It's generating new ideas, really more novelty based, regardless of the goal. Right.
But the goal, it still is, there is still some sort of problem, like, ooh, I have this scenario that is not quite resolved, so I'm going to embark on telling a story or creating a piece of art that in some ways attempts to make sense of this unresolved thing in me, and I'm trying to get at a higher truth. So in some ways that is like trying to solve a problem, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can see it. So your definitions actually map really well onto the official definitions, whatever.
Really?
Those are.
Okay, I'm curious.
So the first definition of creativity that I found, the more psychological definition, is the ability to discover new and original ideas, connections, and solutions to problems. So
discover instead of create is interesting, because those are very different. Discover, or am I getting too hung up on that?
Well, it seems weird to define creativity as creating, just because
I
it's
know,
the same
but
word.
discovering and creating are actually
right.
fundamentally different. One is coming upon it, and it already exists in the world, and you come upon it, versus you manifesting and generating. Yeah, like why not say generating?
I agree. I kind of quibble with this definition a little bit as well. But the fact that it could be ideas or connections is important too, right? Because a lot of times you're taking things that already exist and combining them in novel ways, and that's considered creativity.
You could even argue there is nothing new, no new ideas.
I kind of don't like that. You hear that argument all the time, and there's something inside me that just goes, nah, it's just uncomfortable with that argument. Totally, I understand it, and I don't know. I don't like it.
Well, and quick aside, there's the adage, history repeats itself. And then I came across a Mark Twain quote, which I feel like he's often misquoted, so I don't know if it was him or not, but it was, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I had to sit there for a second and think about that. And so, in the same way,
a template.
New ideas might be new. They just rhyme in the sense that they parallel some idea that's been out there, but it is still new. It just has a lot of parallels.
They follow a general pattern, but the specifics may vary.
And of course they do, if logic has any root in truth, right? That anyway.
There's another definition of creativity, a phenomenon whereby something new and valuable is formed. What do you think of that definition?
That suggests that like nature is creative, that it doesn't. Can you read it one more time?
A phenomenon whereby something new and valuable is formed.
It's provocative to me because it just suggests this sort of like out of chaos potentially, or out of like the human spirit doesn't need to necessarily be a part of it. Like this can just sort of happen, and there's something kind of thrilling about the idea of like some chaos, but like, hey, like this sense something new, or what?
Valuable, new and valuable.
New and valuable, yeah.
I mean, that brings up a lot of philosophical questions. Like you just brought up, I didn't consider this, but yeah, is a volcano creative because the lava hardens and makes volcanic ash that's fertile ground for new plants, and
so that is valuable and it's new.
Right. So is a volcano creative?
Sounds stupid to say.
It sounds stupid, right? And I mean, is creativity
because it is creating
necessarily human?
I think we need to delineate between something that's creating versus being creative, right? Like, so,
yeah,
because it's definitely creating something, and there's beauty in that and all of it. But is it creative? God, I do feel like it's distinctly human. Is creativity? I've thought of it as human base.
I have to. So I guess to pose another annoying question, like there are those birds that build like fantastic nests for mating, do mating dances and all that stuff, have bird calls and whatnot. Is that creativity? Like, can animals have creativity? I'm
okay with saying that animals. So I shouldn't say just human based, but it would be something like, what's the word? Sentient, something conscious.
Sure, sentient. Yeah, I guess
sentient.
Would be the best word.
That I'm comfortable saying yes, animals can be creative because of course they can encounter a problem and
solve it in a novel way.
Yes. Yeah. So that doesn't really throw me, but the idea of like a volcano or rainwater, like, I don't know, just like, or lightning strikes something and creates a diamond or something. I don't know. That creative. I mean, it created, but it's not creative.
Right.
So
there has to be some sort of. I mean, you have to be directed, right? You have to have a goal and then reach it.
Yeah, there's some purpose in it. Well, obviously this, and you could start to fold in like God create this ecosystem that is beautifully like self-sufficient in some ways, and I don't know, but it just and that could be an argument. The creativity of nature points toward
intelligent design.
Sort of thing. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So is creativity a marker of consciousness, would you say? Like, that's the thing. So I was, I have tried to define consciousness as a human thing, right? Are animals conscious? Do they have consciousness? They're intelligent. They have some limited emotional capability, but are they conscious? No one has answered this question, really. And so when I was thinking about creativity and with respect to animals, if you have a goal-directed purpose and you're solving problems in new, novel ways, it seems like something that requires consciousness. What do you think?
Could you give me a working definition of conscious or consciousness? No, fair.
I couldn't do that. I mean, that is so vague. It's fuzzy. People can't settle on a definition of consciousness. Some of these thoughts popped into my head because I'm taking a cognitive science class right now, and it's all about very interesting thing. It's actually really funny. Our podcast, the Third Space Podcast, could be retitled the Cognitive Science Podcast in a way, because aside from some of the silly things we do, and even some of the silly things we do, it's right in line with cognitive science.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think animals meet a lot of standards just to a lesser extent. Are they intelligent? Yes, just way less intelligent than humans. Are they creative? Yes, just way less creative than humans. Do they have person?
Yes, but way less.
Not so fast. So are they conscious, just way less so than humans? Uh,
I don't know.
to
That's
the
weird.
point.
It's weird to say.
I mean, and part of it gets into the. I mean, the territory is like if you then say that they're conscious and have all of these things, we shouldn't, kill them and eat them, I guess. But that's
Yeah,
another.
maybe that's a step
Maybe, but
further.
if it's
But
so far, like if it's so small and stuff, if it's so like maybe they're can you be a tiny bit conscious? Can you be semi-conscious?
semi-conscious, maybe.
I mean, clearly, that's a description of someone's knocked in the head and they're not all there. They're semi-conscious.
Well, is a person who's been knocked in the head and not all there more conscious than a dog? I mean, you would have to say yes, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So I don't know, like.
But that seems more of a black and white, like awake. What we're essentially saying is, are they functioning at their full capacity or not when we say semi-conscious? So that's a linguistic issue, right? That when someone's semi-conscious, they're not fully functioning, is what that means.
Sure.
But we're
Fair.
actually asking more of like, what is consciousness, and does creativity require consciousness? And I'm comfortable saying yes, creativity requires consciousness because
Let me ask this then: if creativity requires consciousness, can you make a computer program that is creative?
No.
So, do you remember when we did the episode on AI Dungeon and it generated the stories for us? You remember that?
Yes.
Was that creative?
It's mimicking creativity in a
Okay.
maybe a convincing fashion, but I would not call it creative. But this gets into blurred definitions. Is it the utility of mimicking creativity is just as or possibly just as strong as genuine creativity. So you take
That's an interesting observation. So is the mimicking of consciousness as important as consciousness in the same way?
So then we have to treat AI with human rights or something, Well, this is what I mean, though. If, let's say, you have a very complex AI machine writing TV episodes and they're entertaining and the masses love it and it's high rating, then that's what I mean by it's mimicked creativity, but who mimic or not, it's creating something valuable in that people are enjoying it and there's no problem there. It might as well be a creativity.
So
it just is like,
if we go, well, either of the official definitions, the ability to discover new and original ideas, connections, and solutions to problems, certainly a computer can discover new solutions to problems, right? Or the other definition, a phenomenon whereby something new and valuable is formed. Well, I mean, they can definitely do that.
But if we go with the official, is it doing? Isn't it doing computation? I mean, yeah, okay.
Well, so imagine you had two columns in a gigantic table in the computer, and they were all food ingredients. Maybe I'm just throwing something out there, and you list every possible food ingredient in one column and then the other, and you have the computer scramble them all up. Or maybe it's food ingredients in one column and like drink combinations in the other column. Whatever. Anyway, there's so many that a human couldn't ever make all the combinations, but the computer can quickly. Maybe it has their nutritional components too. Anyway,
and some sort of list of what does and does not go together traditionally, like
something. Anyway, it generates a new dish, a new combination of foods. It takes, the guava from the whatever country and the dessert from this other country and combines it in a special way, and we see that and we go, wow, we never thought of that. That's new and tasty, so it solves the problem of my hunger. Like, that's creative. This computer was creative. Is that true? Was it creative, or did it just crunch numbers? Did it follow some deterministic pathway to get to an answer?
Is that an either or? I mean, didn't it do both of those things?
Yeah, kind of.
Like, it's factual that it did both of those things.
I mean, do we just have to draw a line in the sand and say, no, creativity is a human phenomenon and computers can't be creative? Like, that's
why I said no in sort of a provocative fashion, intentionally, to say, like, I mean, it's mimicking creativity to the point that it doesn't matter, or I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but the definition, it looks the same to us. It seems identical but we have to be careful and say what it's doing is mimic. It is not thinking. It is computing. I mean, right? Like, and then but we blur, like when we say we're thinking, like let me do the computations in my head, like let me do the pros and cons and weigh in. Like is thinking
Computing.
Computing?
Well, I don't think we know the answer to that question.
Consciousness.
We like to believe that there's more to our thought than just, electrochemical reactions.
I certainly feel I feel
brain.
fundamentally invested in that idea.
Sure, yeah,
I think people that go down the path of it not, like they it's a 1-to-1 ratio of those that not just entertain that intellectually but start to believe it. They are depressed and go down a really and nothing matters sort of thing. So like we're hardwired. There you go. We are designed to compute in a way that is invested in the idea that our consciousness is special, unique, and we're the only ones, or not only ones, but we are, like, creativity is a conscious and beautiful thing. I don't know.
Right. So, this is the line of thought that, if you cast it forward however many decades or centuries, and we manage to build a machine that is chemically or mechanically identical to the human brain, and it can think and reason and all of these things because it's artificial, because we made it. It's still not conscious, right?
But here's and it could be I've thought about this, that if we did that, then it would also be sort of invested in saying that at least in making the case out loud to us that, hey, please don't hurt me. I am real. I promise you I'm conscious. And yet it would just be doing computation. So it would make a convincing case that it's conscious, and it would develop a relationship, it would convince the people that it's developing a relationship. And so at that point it's mimicking consciousness, to a degree that's indistinguishable.
Right. I think if we get to that point, if we get to the point where we build a machine that mimics consciousness so well, I think humanity would be too weak to not treat it as a human, right?
Agreed. And that would be very weird as you're like killing, let's say, or let's just say there's a new updated version and it's begging, please don't like discard me or throw me away.
No way. There's no way you're going to get even a majority. I don't even think you would get a majority of humans to say, no, you're just a machine and you're tricking me, or
right.
No, your computations are going haywire, or whatever. They would go.
Even in myself, if it were that complex, it's like, look at how like at the off chance that I'm wrong and we have created consciousness, and if I can't justify why it's not consciousness, like I'm saying, if I stuck to my guns, like, no, it's just mimicking consciousness, and they said, okay, it's mimicking it, does it, and then they offer up every definition, then why is it not still valuable enough to treat with the same? If we're gonna if it can mimic consciousness perfectly, then we should mimic our treatment of it.
Let me ask this provocative question. How do you know that anyone else around you is conscious?
I don't.
Right? Well, like, if I am hanging out with you and, I say, please don't kill me, I'm conscious. Like, I can interact with you in conversation. I can have a podcast. I can tell you about my hopes and dreams and all the stuff that you normally can do with another human being in terms of communication. If the robot or this machine or AI or whatever could do it too, what's the difference in the end, right? Like, and right. Kind of we live in that situation where we just kind of take for granted that everyone else is also conscious, they're conscious, they're aware, and so
or that there's a world outside of myself too. All of that, right? Like I can't step outside of myself to know, but right. I have a limited amount to just have to declare yes and proceed forward with like a set of values and that's what I have.
And you analogize too, right? Like you see that you are a human being and you have 2 arms and 2 legs and you respond to pain in this way and you get hungry and whatever. And all the other people around you respond in the same way. And so you take how you feel and you assume that they feel the same way. You have some experiential understanding of your own consciousness, and so you assume that they also have consciousness. And you don't even think about it really. It's just easy that way. But a robot, they're different, right? We're aware that they're not the same as us, and we created them. We, soldered the circuits and hooked up the Ethernet cables and the motherboards and everything.
Gears.
Some gears.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Undoubtedly, some gears.
That was just my
and so
contribution.
we know they're not the same, and that difference, I don't know, it would make us suspicious of their. They can't feel pain in the same way we can. That's just a pressure sensor that we put in the fingertips to detect whatever. I don't know. Like, it would be difficult.
It feels
to
like an attack
me.
on my humanity to suggest that they're just as human. But then if I can't justify the difference, if they're perfectly mimicking humanity, then regardless of whether, like, yeah, it kind of becomes, okay, if it's creativity or not, like, I have to acknowledge by every measurable standard, it's functioning as creativity, whether it's mimicking or not. And so, like, I don't know what to do. So then why would I treat it any differently? Right. So, like, and that's a frustrating for me to say aloud, because I want to just say, no, the robot, like, is not deserving of this treatment. Like, all of a sudden we design robots to do things. It's more like, well, can we start designing the future ones to be less so we need a distinction. That way we can put them to work for too many hours, and we can, without it being a moral, like, it's weird that we would owe a robot some moral
putting them, so that's another interesting thing, putting them to work for too many hours, that seems like a moral hazard, right? But if a robot is, why do we not want to put humans to work for too many hours? Well, because they have finite lifespans, and it stresses them out. It could decrease the quality of their life and so on. But would a robot have the same response to working for so many hours? Would we design the robot in order to get tired? Would the robot's power supply running down be equivalent? Like, there's some things that don't quite translate, right? And so that's why you would be tempted, the robot manufacturer who has robot slaves, who has conscious robot workers, quote unquote conscious robot workers. You might have the one who is tempted to say, okay, robots, your battery power is approaching 15%, time to go home for the day. But then you would have the other that would say, like, battery power isn't the same as stress and fatigue and everything in your robots, so you can just continue working. And which one is right? Like, we would be very suspicious of the internal mechanisms of the robots, the conscious mechanisms, not the physical ones.
The conscious ones of, like, we contain contradictions and paradoxes and mutually exclusive beliefs, sort of all contained in one, and we try to reconcile that, and we experience shame in discrepancies between our beliefs and actions and all of that. And so does that translate? Obviously, yeah, a computer could still have contradictory, like, ideas programmed in it, right? And then, but does a computer demand to resolve those even more than a human? Like, a human can sit with the ambiguity. Can a computer compute ambiguity functionally the way we can?
Yeah, the way we can. That's the hard part to answer, because we don't know how we can.
Because they have to quantify at some point, right? And then move forward with a decision based on an algorithm that is
in a computer,
quantifiable. In
a computer, yeah, it's probabilistic, right? Like, you could have something that is not,
at least my understanding of it, yeah.
It would be, option A, or belief A has probability 73% of likelihood, and belief B has this. So you can have two beliefs that exist, but the computer, unless there's some amount of randomness to it, then it seems like, yeah, it would all be quantified. Like, it's all there in the circuits in some way.
Whereas our beliefs aren't, at least as far as we
just
know.
don't know. We don't know. That's the problem. Like,
it might be quantifiable.
Are all of our beliefs, like, is it just, okay, there are X number of serotonins in this location, and these neurons are firing at this rate over here, so that means I believe,
really are
whatever.
Just complex machines at that point. Like, if that's true,
right? But something is totally unknown, and until it's known, like, I have kind of a negative reaction to that idea that we're just meatballs.
And I don't think that's true, that you could, even with the decisions or the self-contained paradoxes, I just don't think can be resolved through like, I mean, certainly not at this point in science, but I don't think we'll ever be able to. That means then we are predictable. Like we theoretically are 100%, and it is deterministic, and it is all set in stone. Like, okay, and then can you hold people responsible for crime? Like,
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that you're right, and that our understanding of the brain, ourselves, of our own consciousness, that is far in the future. But the problem that we mentioned about making a robot that is indistinguishable in terms of creativity or consciousness or whatever from humans, that's not as far away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means that's a problem we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, a problem and a true gift. I mean, if you can start getting, I mean, online education can really take off if you can have robot professors give constructive feedback on essays and things like that. There's some quick utility, or get so creative at, there I use the term that wasn't as a joke, but like their problem solving capacity is so complex that it mimics creativity. Like, I mean, we really are going to face a problem of employment like pretty quickly.
Yeah,
like what are we gonna do? Like, if most people can be replaced by robots and we can function that way, will we have a weird, like, people still need purpose, and so we become the machines, and then most people are not as creative as they can't mimic the creativity that machines can.
Well, people vary in creativity naturally, yes. Right? Some people are more creative than others, and so there certainly could be a future in which some of our machines are more creative than the less creative humans. That might already be the case. We have some pretty uncreative humans.
Well, that's the problem. The rich get richer, or the haves have more. all these machine things and technological advances were supposed to level the playing field, but then the more tools you put out there, the people who are capable use them wiser and better and more uniquely and more creatively, and those who don't, like, so the discrepancy is getting wider, not smaller.
Well, so I mean, there are two futures that sci-fi and everything people kind of predict. There's the dystopia and the utopia, right? When machines take over. In the utopia, the machines do all the work for us, and we get to just live, happy, free lives doing whatever the humans want to do, while the machines, generate the food and maybe the entertainment and whatever. We do wherever is hedonistic, wherever our heart desires to take us, which you can argue whether that's a utopia or not. And then there's the dystopia where, if the machines, if the computers can do everything that we would normally do, that leaves us feeling without purpose and worthless, right? Like, if nothing I can do, if I can't do anything better than some machine can do, why would I do any of those things?
Yeah.
Like, if I want to write a story and then my computer chimes in and says, "Oh, Bennett, how about this story?" And they go, and they generate the story, and it's way better than anything I could. And it's new, it's novel and creative. It's a novel. Well, that's going to be pretty disheartening, right?
It is. You work on painting or playing guitar or whatever it is, and it just.
But
I mean, people are better at painting or playing guitar or writing novels already, and we still embark on it to try.
Right,
so,
and
I don't know.
And there's some there's some experiential component to it as well, like playing the guitar. Yeah, I've played guitar for years, more than a decade now, and I don't consider myself a musician, really. I'm not in a band. Like, I don't even claim to have that great of skill at it, but it is enjoyable to do it. Like, even though I'm not that good, it's enjoyable to sit down and try to play through a song. And if a computer could do it better than me, well, I don't really care. Like, I still would like playing the guitar, I think.
Can you imagine they start, everything says these little stickers that say made in China,
Oh, yeah.
and people there's some pride and made in USA kind of thing, and like, so
GMOs,
they start,
there's or
yeah, so you
organic.
start saying made by human, invented or created by humans, and you're
Wow,
like, I'm
this is
by
a
human.
this is a really good painting for a human.
For a human. I like the,
That's funny.
yeah, because it's like, the healthy foods and stuff, they go bad quicker and they don't taste quite as good
Uh,
and blah blah blah, but like, we've kind of accepted if you want to eat healthy, you got to pay a little more and it's going to taste a little worse, and that will happen with human products. I mean, it already happens when you buy like a hand whittled table or chair or something. Like, it's way more expensive, and
yeah.
it's a piece of art or whatever.
Well, think about
So
like diamonds, gemstones. There's synthetic gemstones and natural
yeah,
gemstones, and the value is different between those,
absolutely.
even though they're chemically identical.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Like, what do you do with that information? Like, does this, like, it's kind of like, okay, progression. We move forward. We're gonna have those as two viable. When you want to go buy, say, diamonds or gemstones, you go, do I want the more expensive, quote unquote, real, or the one that can be produced in a lab grown, I think is the term.
It's
So,
like, do you want a Picasso or a print of a Picasso? It's the same art.
yes,
It's visually it's the same, but one is genuine and one is not. Ah, man, is that a
right.
distinguishing factor? Like in the AI
That
world,
what humans just sort of attribute value to,
right? Like
and
if
we
you go
like,
to the Chick-fil-A, the robot Chick-fil-A, or the human Chick-fil-A, like is there something quaint and enjoyable about getting your Chick-fil-A?
we hire humans only, and yeah, your meal's gonna get messed up way more often,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be messed up by humans.
That one time when you get your Chick-fil-A sandwich with pickles on it, you're just kind of like, that's nice.
Well,
It's nice every now and then.
It's the price I'm willing to pay for human,
For the
human
the
error.
human
That's
touch.
lovely.
Human error becomes a commodity.
Oh, look, mine got pickles on it when I didn't order it with pickles.
Wow, my lawnmower caught on
Wow.
fire. Awesome.
Yeah, there's a leak in my roof. Woohoo!
All right. Topsy-turvy, upside down land.
Well, I mean, I wonder if we do gain a greater appreciation for flaws, but then wouldn't the
computer would mimic that pretty quickly, right?
yeah, they would, and they'd say, "Oh, humans like a little error," and so they just build that into their, like, oh man.
So is it just? It would just be
Freaking-
another pendulum where the humans try to distinguish themselves from the robots, and then the robots adapt, and then we distinguish again, and it's just continually back and forth, kind of like hipsters,
Yes, or in like a post. So yeah, or in like the term race wars and things. It's just, but except we're battling robots, but then we reach harmony, and then we just decide to not care because we're really not that different, and then we all live in harmony, and you just kind of don't know if you're dating a robot or not.
Weird.
But who really needs to know the difference? Because what will knowing it do practically? And since we're all mimicking humanity in our own way anyway. Like all our behavior is learned to some extent, just like the robots. And you can see these sort of civil rights discussions and
So
man.
another thing that just pops in my head, like, one concern that people have, putting computers aside, is population, right? People talk about overpopulation and so on, and the environment, deforestation and whatever. If we have 12 billion people on the earth, like, is that too much? The people get into debates about this kind of thing. But with computers, especially computer programs, we could, how much physical space does a computer program take up? Less space than a
Right.
human does, And so could we have 40 billion conscious, quote unquote, conscious beings on the earth? 80 billion? 120? Like, what limit is there to the number of AI beings that we could have? And would humanity quickly become such an extreme minority, such as not to matter?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of difficult for me to conceptualize even. And then, aren't they there to serve us? And so then, are we this elite just by being human? You're like at the top of the
Maybe,
conscious food chain.
maybe, right? Yeah, well,
So
we're in
we're like kings and queens in this world,
and we have
or we're servants, and we're
yeah,
one or the
right
other. We're
again.
not just in the
Yeah,
middle.
right. Again, it goes through the two sci-fi tracks, either utopia or dystopia. But like, imagine if we went the utopia route, we were kings and queens or whatever. Like every person, there's you have a million conscious AI things that are devoted to presenting you with the finest you know novels tailored to your tastes and video games created to titillate you and all of this sort of thing. Like, I mean, that seems within the realm of believability, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, given this, I mean, you know, and all of this is designed to sort of alleviate delayed gratification and promote instant gratification,
Sure.
and
Well,
which
but
is another like sort of core belief
well,
that I
but
have
maybe
that could be
not. I
problematic.
mean, maybe not. Well, I don't know. Just we can already have AI generated stories to an extent. Obviously they're not as good as human stories, and stories are special because they have some element of value to them. Their plot, they're meant to tell you something, teach you something. They have a narrative. Anyway, that aside, I saw a thing where they made an AI generate Pokemon. It analyzed all the images of all the Pokemon, and then it created some new Pokemon out
Yeah,
of that, and they were
were they good?
well, good is a stretch, but they were distinct. They looked like if you just took a quick glance at it, you would go, "Oh, a new Pokemon game came out." They weren't like blobs of nothing. They were weird. Like some of them had feet sticking out of their heads and whatever because it just absorbed the images. But they looked like 2D drawings of colorful creatures of some sort. You could imagine, a better version, a 30 years in the future version of that could generate Pokemon. You could imagine a 30 years in the future program that had the text writing capability and the Pokemon generating capability and music generating capability, all of it combined to generate a video game or something, right? Like
Right.
an AI. There are already procedural generation algorithms in video games to make terrain and racetracks and all that sort of thing. You can imagine a game where you just click go and it makes the whole game, everything. Like, that's wild to
Yeah, you're
think.
the first and only to play it, possibly.
Right. And like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like you could get to a point where if you can have programs that can generate things to an indistinguishable level, well, now that just seems to change everything. I guess my only resistance is that I'm still not convinced. That's a big if you can have a machine generate something that's indistinguishable. That's still a big if. Like, maybe in one instance you could be fooled, but after you read 100 AI generated novels, you might go, these feel kind of empty. Where's the meaning in this?
That's what I want to know, is if that conscious, that soul is absent, or if they're able to mimic it to the degree which we just wouldn't know. Like, it feels flavorful and homey or real, or I don't know. That's what I can't conceptualize, and I'm worried that I'm not like smart enough. Like, how do you distinguish sincerity? Is almost the thing. Can it be sincere, and can a machine be sincere?
Yeah, I wonder if casting again down into the future, like we get to this point where there are AI generated stories and TV shows and or maybe they're cartoons, or maybe they're photorealistic CGI, or whatever.
Right.
Whatever they are, like, do we get to the point where we're so suspicious of them and that we kind of we kind of favor more in-person interactions?
I mean,
Like, this
that's interesting.
is it the revival of the theater, because we can tell they're humans? And
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And in fact, I think we crave sincerity to such a degree that like all this polish and flashiness, like out of that, I mean, people literally watch people playing video games and long form podcasts are because it's sincere and a little messy and it doesn't have the polish of other things. So we crave sincerity, whatever that means. And so can a robot is creativity and is there any relationship with sincerity that like these solutions have sincerity? I'm not even sure what I mean, but I mean that like would we start detecting and go, this something's a little off because it's a computation and computations are devoid of
Yeah, so I think maybe
something sincere?
maybe I'm on to what you're saying. So there's there simply making something new isn't good enough, right? Like if you went to the grocery store and they had all their shopping carts and they were polka dotted, that's creative, right? That's new.
Yeah.
But is it worthwhile? Like it's just not there's no substance to it really, unless, the polka dots meant something in some way, but let's just they don't really. That's something a computer could generate, right? They could go, the computer in its calculating, in its algorithm
Yeah.
would go, all right, we need to alter the variable color on the shopping carts, and it would do that, and voila, it's creative. And you might be reading a story, and the character goes into the grocery store, and there's the polka dotted shopping carts, and that's creative. So technically, I mean, it's something novel, but it's not impressive to us because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but we talked about value being a component, new and valuable, right?
Yep, yeah. One of the definitions said new and valuable. You're right. But I mean, value. What is value? Sometimes
I don't know.
pure novelty is valuable, right? Because it's titillating. It's something new to the senses, and you've never seen it before,
Right.
and that's its only value. So I don't know how you would make a computer distinguish that. Thankfully, I don't have to solve that problem.
I guess just when I say that whether it's YouTube people making unpolished videos, the reason people still gravitate toward that is, my argument is sincerity. And what I mean by that is they see themselves in this person. Oh, I not only could I do that, I feel like I could be friends with them, and this person seems real, quote unquote. So the real and the sincere and all of this, I don't know. I feel like at least at this point, computers are incapable of mimicking that. In the world we're discussing, they would be capable of mimicking that.
I wonder how complex.
I don't even know what that would look like.
I wonder how complex that really is, because when we were talking about, the computer begging for its life, saying, "Please don't deactivate me. I have feelings too," and all that. Is that sincere? Like, would we be? We don't know, right? I guess we wouldn't be. We don't know if we would be able to.
I guess the answer is actually no. It's not. It's designed to try and self-advocate. So therefore, it's just following the computations, and it's the most effective argument. It's done the math. This is the most effective thing to say during this moment. So it is not sincere, but it would appear very sincere, and that's what's unnerving.
Well, so that's the thing. Could that be replicated? Like if you had your computer generated YouTube channel or TV show or whatever, could it so easily mimic sincerity, the sincere cues that you're getting from the real human? Could it mimic those to the point where you couldn't tell? I don't know.
I think in this scenario, yes, but I'm wondering if we'll ever be able to develop something so complex that it can mimic sincerity.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like if it can come so close, but it's just that uncanny valley moment where
Right.
oh, I mean, sure, it stuttered a little bit, but that's not sincere, It thinks it's computed that is sincerity, but it reads as bizarre.
I wonder if there's a psychological uncanny valley that we just simply haven't discovered yet because we haven't made.
We're not even close to the valley.
Right. But
yeah.
we make physical dolls and things that we react negatively to because they appear not human. And that's probably evolutionary, right? Like people may have a sickness or something that makes them look different, and so we react to that asymmetry in facial features and whatever. But that's the physical uncanny valley, and we've experienced and observed that. But what if there's a psychological uncanny valley that we experience when we interact with this artificial thing, and it's fooling us for a while, and then all of a sudden we get so the clue that, wait a second, this isn't a human. And I wonder if there's some extreme discomfort that pops up at that point that's different.
I imagine the answer is a resounding yes. That's precisely what I'm talking about, is that you'd start to interact, and then it would do something designed to promote its sincerity or creativity or whatever very deeply human characteristic that wouldn't land with us and say, ooh, that you are That is not. You are a robot.
Do you remember? Do you
know?
remember way back in the AOL Instant Messenger days when there were bots on?
Yeah.
And there was like what was the chat?
Yeah, there's a main one too. I forgot
Right.
about that. You
What
just
was
kind
that
of
chat
unearthed
bot's
that
name?
for
It was
me.
like I don't remember what it was called.
I don't remember, but you could say hi
You
and
could
it
say
would
hi,
respond,
and
you could ask what time it is. I mean, those were really basic.
really basic.
You know?
But you could interact with it and maybe get a few exchanges before you started to go, this is weird.
I mean, the question is like Siri, Alexa, Google. All these things are like they want to come across as human, but they're not trying to be too human because they know it might be weird for us. But like, so that it's meeting some happy medium about being servant oriented and kind. But what does that mean? Pleasant versus interactive in a deep way. And this is making me think of Her, the movie Her, and all of that too. Like, I just imagine that it would get into uncanny valley territory, and I think that'd be a very neat idea to explore when you're there, like the uncanny valley of psychology with AI.
Interesting thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts are interesting sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
Well, thanks.
And I like that you're taking a cognitive science class too. I imagine that is like psychology, is it not?
Yeah.
Or are you looking at it in terms of coding?
Well, when I started the class, I was surprised and pleased that they define cognitive science as the intersection between it's like 7 different fields, including psychology, AI, philosophy, linguistics, education. I don't remember them all. There are a couple others that I've forgotten, but all things that I'm interested in, right? All of these areas are things that I'm interested in, and all of them are things that we've talked about to some extent or another, which is really cool. Unfortunately, well, the course, I'm only about a third of the way through it, but you would have
like, is the textbook for it great or
there's no
what?
one. Well, I just have a lot of minor qualms with the way the course is being run so far, and the assignments and group work and just trivial crap. The subject matter, the ideas are really great. I really like them, but the way that it's been implemented thus far has taken a lot of the wind out of my sails. It's kind of a downer. You would have a lot of thoughts on the educational aspect of it, I'm sure, but I can't say I
imagine too. You pose provocative thoughts to like an online course where people might be calling it in. I mean, I don't mean to suggest that everyone is, but so this really cool prompt and article is posted, and then just being very disappointed with the ideas that evolve from that.
Yeah, it's also a shotgun of information, right? Like, the field is broad and there are tons of ideas, and time is a limited resource that we have. And so someone may post an interesting question like, is there free will? And that's an interesting question to me. I like to think about that question, but do I want to think about that question and write a lot on this online forum that's going to go away really quickly? And I'm not, for no benefit other than my own thoughts. Not really. I would rather just think about it on my own and talk about it on a podcast.
Right. So. Which is the same thing everyone's thinking. So then you end up just kind of having the comment discussion level debates or something.
To be fair, this is the first time they've done this course online. They've limited the class size. There are only like 85 students in the class. And it's never been done online. So there's probably some growing pains. And it'll probably be better in future years. But right now, I'm not wild about it. I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. So, meh.
Well, we'll do a check-in on that the next podcast and see how it's going.
Yeah, I'm doing I have to do a group project, and we chose emoji. So we're investigating. We haven't nailed it down yet, but like
from a linguistic perspective of how do emojis.
Yeah, from a linguistic perspective, like the thought. This was one of my ideas, and what interested me about it was that English is an alphabetic language. We have 26 characters, and all of our communication comes through in combinations of those characters. But then you take something like Chinese, which is what they call logographic. It's not an alphabet. They're all little pictures, right? And there are thousands of these little pictures. and emoji are
Yeah.
closer to Chinese than they are to English. And yet we are now introducing all of these little pictures into our conversation. In fact, I counted the ones on my phone, and I think there were over almost 1,600 different emoji available, right? That's huge.
Wow.
So now, like, that's a huge expansion of our communication ability. And what does that do to people? Like, is it more efficient? Like, are we going to get to a point where we're talking in mostly emoji because we can only send one or two of them and communicate a whole sentence? Or is the specificity of the alphabet and the English language better because we can hone in on ideas? There's a lot of questions that just we haven't narrowed down exactly what we're testing, but one experiment that I proposed that I think is really interesting, I'm not sure if we're going to carry it out, is I wrote like a little 1-paragraph story. I just wrote it in words, and then I wrote another little 1-paragraph story. It follows a very similar form, but I replaced some of the keywords with emoji here and there. And then I wrote another story, and it's all emoji. There are no words in it. And after each one, I have some comprehension check questions that are, that ask you, how many people are in this story, how old is the protagonist, blah, 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 whatever. Little comprehension check questions that you should definitely answer and be able to answer if you understood the story. And then, you time them. You time how long it takes to read the story, and maybe you can gather that there's some happy medium where a few emoji actually make it quicker. They speed up comprehension, whereas maybe the super emoji one, it takes a little bit longer to parse. But I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, that was the thought.
Yeah, and the assumption under this is that efficiency is the key goal versus, say, enjoyability or warmth or like how they feel, Yeah, I'd just say that's an interesting metric that would be difficult to quantify, but like, which one did they prefer to read, even if one was more efficient, one they walked away feeling they had a little more flavor.
That's hard to measure though, right? Because if you try to read, if I sent you the emoji only story, it's difficult.
Well, that's a pretty clear. Yeah, it's going to be the worst on on the three metric or of the three.
Maybe.
Yeah,
well, but
right?
is it difficult because it's unfamiliar, or is it difficult because it's truly less efficient? Like, I'm not used to reading emoji only stories, but if I was, and if I learned the quote unquote language of emoji, would it be faster? I don't know.
Yeah, that'll never, like, it'd be like, hand me another keyboard that is technically you can type faster, because the QWERTY keyboard was designed to slow us down. So but if you were to test me on it, I'd be much slower on the better keyboard. So that's a problem you would run into with testing.
It's true.
And age of the testers
all kinds
and all
of
that too.
Confounding things.
Familiarity.
In this course we have limited time, limited manpower, so our experiment is going to be pretty lame, I think. I mean, well, whatever. It's fine for what we're doing, but if you were really going to dig down into the idea, it would take a lot more work. So, anyway, but
yeah, but it's a neat idea.
I'll if we remember next time, I'll fill you in on how it's going, and if we discovered anything interesting.
Cool.
So, that was fun. Bye.
That was fun. Okay, bye.
The end.
Bye again.
Final bye.